Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the host of the world-renowned comic interview podcast, Ideas Don't Bleed, as well as the writer of comics like What's the Furthest Place from Here and the upcoming We're Taking Everything Down with Us. It's Matthew Rosenberg. Thanks for coming on, Matthew.
Thank you for having me. That was quite the introduction. I feel like I feel seen.
Was your morning going better until I identified you as a podcaster?
No, because it's always in the back of my head that I have a podcast, and I'm disappointed in myself every time I think about it.
It's funny. We talked, God, when was that? Like a year ago? About a year ago for a feature I did on Sketched about podcasts. And I remember it seemed like you really wanted me to think that you didn't like it. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it wasn't like self-propaganda that like, I do this, but I kind of hate it. But,
mm-hmm.
You've been hosting a podcast for a couple of years now with Ideas Don't Bleed, something that was born of your Substack Pro Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still say you hate it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. When your branding is good, you stick with it. No, I have a very, I do have I simplify things to be like, I hate this, but I do have a very complicated relationship with it because I do kind of don't think I add very much. I feel like if I just was like, hey, people are going to come on and they're just going to talk about what they want. Interesting people who make comics are going to come talk about what they want. And I'm just going to walk out of the room for an hour. I'm like, I don't know that the podcast would be worse, particularly. So that's sort of my take on it. But I am there and I do ask them weird questions, and that's how it goes.
Yeah. There's a baseball statistic called value over replacement player. And,
I'm aware.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I actually have another baseball reference coming up later, so this excites me. But maybe you're the replacement player, and like Ethan and Griffin are like the above replacement players. They're the ones who carry the team. Yeah.
No, they are very much clutch to the team. I'm a bullpen catcher at best if we're doing this. Like if I'm in the game, something's gone wrong, and I'm in every game.
I will say I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I have no commute. I am in the room that I do my day job and my comic stuff also. And so commutes are mostly where I listen to podcasts. I don't like exercising to podcasts. I can't work to it because I just stopped listening.
Of course.
I do listen to your podcast on occasion, especially after Kieran Gillen forced me to, and he kept talking up the Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley episode, which was fantastic, by the way. I have to say,
they're great.
Your intros on every episode where you guys are just like talking, you and Griffin and Ethan, you seem to enjoy it.
Well, that's the moment. Like, I enjoy it when there's moments where I forget that we're in a podcast. Like, in all honesty, the whole thing was born from the fact that, like, one, Substack gave us money to do it, so that was great.
But they gave you money to do that.
I mean, they didn't know that's what we were going to do. The Substack gave us money that we had to figure out how to use, and we had to do other things, so it fit the bill.
Right.
But the other thing was, like, it was height of the pandemic, and
you want to connect?
Yeah, it was a great chance. I wasn't going to con. It was people I would see 10 times a year at cons, or I'd be in their city, and then suddenly I wasn't seeing any of them, and I was like, it'd be great to like hang out with Kieran. It would be great to just catch up with Jason and Aaron for an hour. And so the moments I enjoy are when that happens, but a lot of people, rightly so, are more guarded than that. Like, sitting in a bar with someone, they're going to say dumb stuff. Like, they know they're on a podcast. And so it doesn't actually feel like that. I know when it clicks, it's because people are casual and they let their guard down. And we're having just a friendly conversation that we would have anywhere. Minus all of the like shit talking and like, oh, I did this and it was really dumb. But like, pretty much an approximation of just a couple comic creators of 4 comic creators hanging out. But it's hard to get to that place. And when we're not in that place, I'm very self-aware and very self-conscious of like, is this worth anyone's time? And I don't know. People do listen to it, so I guess they enjoy it, and I appreciate that.
Are you guarded right now?
Yeah, of course.
What?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, you're a great interviewer, and like, we chat and always chat before we talk. And, I like talking to you. I consider you a friend, but like, yeah, I have to be there and I can't just be like, who's a terrible editor? Like, I would love to be that guy. Like, I'm definitely going to be that guy when I'm like, Chris Claremont or Jim Steranko or one of those guys where it's just like, I can do anything because I've cemented my legacy in this industry. Like, I'm definitely going to be one of those people who's like, who was the worst to work with? Like, I would love to be that guy, but I'm not. So I have to be here and be like, that guy really brings something. And then that's the guarded answer.
You're making me question my entire world right now. This is crazy. I'm sorry that I'm making you suffer through this, but I do have 2 more questions.
Let's do it.
Why are you still doing it? You don't have to. Your grant's over.
So this is an interesting thing. I fully was like, went to Ethan and Griffin, Ethan S. Parker, Griffin Sheridan, my co-hosts and producers on the show. They are also comic creators. They made the excellent Kill Your Darlings
for
Image.
Nominated.
Eisner nominated. Yeah, they're big shots now. They're big boys, and they have a bunch of stuff coming out. They have a ton of cool books. Like, they are about to be the hot writers in comics, and deservedly so. And at a certain point, I was like, hey, we're coming up to 100 episodes. I feel like we're done. I feel like we did what we needed to do. And they were both kind of like not that enthusiastic about ending it.
Sure.
But I was like, well, what can we go? I like to have a goal. I like to have an end game. And so I said, what is our goal here now? And they said, well, promote cool people's books. And I said, sure. And then I was like, well, you guys have a bunch of books coming out. I want you to come on and be able to use this as a tool. Like, we've built this tool to promote. And they were like, you also have books coming out. And I was like, yeah. And then it's just like, so the thing that keeps us going, not just self-promotion, but I was like, oh, Tyler Boss, who is my longtime collaborator on, he worked on We Can Never Go Home. We did Four Kids Walking a Bank together. We still make What's the First Place from here together. He's writing a book for Image that comes out next month called You'll Do Bad Things. And I was like, oh, I can have Tyler on and promote his thing. And tens or hundreds or millions of people will listen to it. And that is what keeps us going. So I like that. And I like the chance to talk to new people we haven't talked to. We're doing a couple interviews. We've run few people who are coming back on the show because they had big things coming up they want to talk about. But I like getting new people. I collect them like Pokemon. So that's why we keep doing it, is just like the pure, I have a platform and I built a platform that actually might help people. And in the age where social media is like
hot garbage.
Hot garbage. You can't promote on it. Like, I came up in the era where you could make a career on Twitter. Like, you could be discovered on Twitter. That's not a thing. No one's getting discovered on Blue Sky. No one's getting discovered on Instagram. Certainly no one's getting discovered on Twitter. Taking away a promotional tool for comics feels bad to me. So we keep going.
I know you've been living a cursed existence to keep going forever, but do you think you've learned anything from those conversations that inform what you're doing as a creator yourself?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I mean, a lot of that stuff is, I used to be a firm believer years ago that you read comics, you read everybody's comics to sharpen your craft. And I still believe that's an important thing. And good comics and bad comics, you learn just as much from a comic you hate as a comic you love, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. I feel like I'm not maxed out on that, but there's a certain point where you're no longer learning as much from a comic. The thing you can be learning is how to do an impression. Like, I can't train my brain to think like Grant Morrison or Alan Moore. Like, my brain is not as good as theirs. It just won't do that. It doesn't twist in the shapes that they get. So I can read all the Grant Morrison comics in the world. The best I can get out of it is a Grant Morrison impression, like a passable Grant Morrison impression, which, a lot of people have built careers on doing a passable Grant Morrison impression, and good for them. But I don't want to do that. And so my next sort of logical step of that is like, if I can't figure out how to be better from studying the work, I'm going to try and figure out how to be better from studying the actual brains of the people. And so that's sort of how I go into a lot of the interviews now, which I said that to someone and they're like, you don't really ask that smart questions. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to like sit down and be like, how do you outline? Like, let's talk about what your outlines are like. But just I'm trying to like do a general osmosis of people's brains and personalities. And I'm trying to figure out the least creepy way to say that I'm trying to just sort of mentally absorb everyone on our show and synthesize that into me being a better writer. And probably won't work, but I like it. I do pick up things where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of story that way. I hadn't approached character that way. So there's something there.
You're a writing vampire.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. I aspire to be a podcast vampire writer. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. I hope you get that. I hope you get that.
Yeah.
That'd be really exciting.
It's got health insurance. So yeah.
That would be quite the twist, that a podcast vampire would have health insurance. But
yeah,
I do want to talk about the roots of the podcast. Like I said, you took a Substack Pro Grant back in September 2022. Outside the podcast, you haven't been as obvious about the projects that have come along because of that grant. But I did a funny thing. I read my own interview in preparation for this where we talked about your Substack Pro Grant. And you know what I found in there? I found art from Stefano Landini that looked pretty familiar.
Sure, yeah.
It was basically the cover to where everything we're taking everything down with us, number one, but with slightly different colors. Actually, considerably different colors. Regardless, it's the same idea. What did that deal ultimately allow you to do? Because it feels like things are coming, we just don't necessarily know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it allowed me to have the freedom to make books. I mean, at the end of the day, it's funny because I didn't pocket money from Substack. No, a lot of people did, as they should. They're doing work, and you should get paid to do work. I'm what we call a moron. And so I was like, I would rather give the money to other people to make books, and I'll make money off the books. The way I explain it to my accountant when she looks at everything and is horrified, I go, I'm investing in intellectual property. I'm buying intellectual property. And she goes, yeah, you gave all your money away. And I go, yeah, I sort of did. That's a good point. But I think there'll be returns. And she's like, pretty volatile. And it certainly is. But we are building books. We're building multiple series. I can't, the thing is that a lot of the people involved are very busy. And so things are taking their time. And but the idea behind the whole thing for me was I want to break out of, there's a grind in comics to move as quickly as possible. And there's a grind in comics that you have to work a certain amount to feed yourself and house yourself and provide for your family. And I was trying to, as much as possible, remove those things because they are impediments to better work. And so our rule is, with the money that I got from Substack, is you make the book at the time, in the time frame you want, at the pace you want. I'll write it and you just go. And if you want to take other things on the side, go. And a lot of people I'm working with are amazing, and so people really want them to do stuff on the side, and so they're doing that and building up who they are and building up their catalog of work. But we are still working on everything, which I'm excited about. I can say we're taking everyone down with us has, many issues done. You can't solicit an image book without most of it being done, and we're obviously beyond that. But there's another book we haven't announced yet that we have 180 pages drawn. It's if we split it up into normal sized issues, there's almost 10 issues done of the book. And we haven't talked about it, and we're not announcing it anytime soon. We're taking our time to just do a whole series and make it cool. And there's other stuff that's in various states. So it's not moving as quickly as I wanted, and that's true, but it is moving in a healthier way than I could have imagined, where people, an artist was like, hey, I just got a really cool opportunity where I'm going to do a thing and it's just going to take 2 months and they're going to pay me out the ass, and it's cool and it's something I believe in. And they were like, would you mind? And I was like, no, that's awesome. Good for you. And it's nice to be able to do that because I have this money, and that's sort of the dream. And that's what publishers tend to not offer you is freedom as an artist. And so I'm happy to be in that ecosystem, but the result is that it's a slow moving train, which I will trade the speed of the train for the health of the passengers any day.
I like that line. That's a good one.
Hey, thank you. Just off the top of my head.
Wow, man,
Yeah.
podcasting gold right there. I love it. There's two things to that. One, Javier Rodriguez was one of the artists you announced.
Yeah.
I love the fact that his like side dabbling was like some of the best art we're like basically seeing comics for the last few years.
Oh yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. It's unbelievable.
We're still working on our book.
I'm really sure. Excited. I'm sure.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is I'm not saying that like, oh no, I'm upset that Chip is making public domain now or something like that, or that, any of those books came out of Substack. Sure. But I will say that I was kind of surprised by how immediate some of it was for some people, because like that is the one thing that I think there's two things that are often missing in comics: money and time. And it seems like that grant in a lot of ways afforded both of those through the money part of it. Yes. And I like that you're doing that because, most of the time what's happening is everyone's surviving the process of releasing single issues, or just hoping that when they do fall off schedule, it's not so far off schedule. And it seems like this approach, I mean, I saw when you talked to the Hollywood Reporter recently that you said that you have a big year of creator-owned comics coming up. Mm-hmm. I imagine you wouldn't get that unless you had something to kind of insulate you from the demands of every day in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, I'm insulated from the demands of every day because I spent a bunch of years in the Marvel and DC mines, and I have a savings account. And We're Taking a Run Down with Us in the luxurious shadow of What's the Furthest Place from Here, where like that book made a bunch of money. That's great. I'm in rarefied air. So I don't, Substack didn't free me up to do anything. Sure. Substack freed me up to reach out to other people to have the same luxury I have, which is like, let's catch our breath. And, I was doing 5 DC books a month, sometimes more. I was doing, there was a time at Marvel I was doing 7 books a month. It's horrible. It's a horrible system.
That sounds exhausting.
And I'm not one of those guys who gets a page rate where like, that means that my non-existent children don't ever have to work. Those people exist. I wasn't doing that, but the companies take care of me fine, and doing all that work was nice, and I'm proud of a lot of that work and whatever. But yeah, I would like to backtrack and say to contradict you, I am frustrated that Public Domain came out. I'm mad at Chip Zdarsky and want that on record
because he's too good.
But no, because he just bothers me. No, I love Public Domain, but yes, I think the luxury of time, the luxury of just saying to people when you feel like it's as good as you want it to be, send it to me, and it's great. And like on We're Taking a Run Down with Us, Stefano is doing the best work of his very good career. Like it's the best things he's ever drawn. And I think part of that is like, we've been taking years to make this book, and on the side, Stefano goes, and it's funny to say on the side because I don't think he thinks of it this way, but obviously I'm centering myself in my own narrative.
Right.
But on the side, he's like, I'm going to do some Black Panther. I'm going to draw some X-Men. I'm going to go do Prodigy with Mark Miller. Like, in the middle of this, he did a French album. Like, he was just like, yeah. And I was just like, cool, that's great, man. Awesome. Go have fun. Do what you need to do. The book will be here when you get back. There's money in the bank account for it. And because of that, there's no rushed pages in the book. There's nothing that's like, no one is rushing. There's no compromise. We're trying to make books without compromise. And that goes across the board. And it's not just in the whatever. The other thing that it affords me is I go, when you make a Marvel or DC book, I love making books for them. I love the guardrails of a 22-page comic, a 20-page comic, knowing that like you have to do a story here. But there's not a writer in the industry who won't tell you that you bump into that sometimes. And everyone has asked for a couple more pages, and almost unequivocally they've been told no. I've only gotten it a few times, and it's a great joy when you do it. And my Image books, I go, hey, we just need more pages, and we just add them. And then like it costs more money to print them. It costs more money for the production team. That's just coming out of my bank account. But the book is better, and I want the book to be as good as it can be. So like, the first 4 issues of What's the First Place from Here average 39 or 40 pages, and we just charged $4 for them because we were like, well, it's a comic. You should pay $4 for it. But also, we wanted it to be longer. So it's nice. It's freeing in that regard too. It's time, it's money, and it's space in a comic that we get, and all of that I think makes better books.
Mm-hmm.
God knows what these books would be like if I didn't have all that. They'd be unreadable.
We're Taking Everything Down with us is what, 32 pages the first issue?
Well, it's funny you say that. No, I think the version you've seen.
What does that
mean? Well, there's a version that some press have seen, a few people in the press. There's a version that retailers have seen as of yesterday. And there's a version a lot of pros have seen, to give quotes. There's another scene in the book that we didn't put in that version. It's not like some great twist or spoiler or anything. There's just a scene we left out. Yeah, there's 4 pages that you didn't see, and I think the version you saw was 34. So I think it's 38 or 39. I don't remember the page counts because I'm dealing with juggling all these different issues. So
sure. But ultimately, though, like it seems like your current situation allows you to afford the artists in your life the time to do their best work. And I think that is an amazing thing. But I did want to ask, you talked about you were doing 7 Marvel books and 5 DC books. And then you also have things like, What's the Furthest Place from Here? And you're working on We're Taking Everything Down with us. And you had varying flavors of DC versus vampires. And then you also had a tale in one of EC's titles, or Oni's EC's titles, Epitaphs from the Abyss.
Yes.
How do you decide?
I had 2.
You had 2. How do you decide?
Yeah, I did 2 EC shorts. Yeah.
How do you decide which projects to take on? Do you have like a guiding principle, or is it just like, this feels right?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it depends where we are in my career.
Yeah, I'm sure that's evolved quite a bit.
At the start, the principle is you do anything they offer you because you never know if they're going to offer you anything again.
Yeah.
And so both career-wise to build up books, but also economically, you're kind of like, I just need money. I don't know if tomorrow it's like being you're called up to go back to the baseball metaphors. You're called up to the big leagues for a game. You got to give it your all because you don't know if you're getting sent down again tomorrow.
No is a luxury that you kind of get later on.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, no is a privilege, for sure, 100%. And so for a long time, that was the principle. A lot of Marvel stuff, there was stuff where part of the challenge is finding your way into the story, finding a way to care about it. And I feel like I always did. I don't have anything that I put out at Marvel where I wasn't like emotionally invested, where I wasn't trying to do my best. Some of it to varying degrees of effectiveness. Like there's things that I'm happier with and there's things I'm more proud of. But yeah, it's that. And then at DC, it was, I only want to do things that are fun. When I moved to DC, I was in a stable position and I was like, hey, I just want to do things that are fun. The problem is that like I hadn't played with a lot of those toys. And so a lot of things sounded fun to me. So like when I got there and they were like, Joker? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they were like, you can do Wildcats. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then they were like, do you want to do a zombie Suicide Squad? And I was like, kind of, yeah. I was like, I literally, in my conversation with Paul Kaminsky, who was the editor on Task Force Z, I said, this is a fun idea. I don't know if it's right for me, man. I said, the only way I'd do it is if I could have Red Hood and Bane. And he was like, okay. I thought I was going to get a no because I knew that James was using Bane in the Joker book. And then he was like, you can use them. And then me and James had to figure out how I was using Bane. And it turns out I wasn't using Bane. But twist, spoiler everybody for my years old book. But I mean, the Red Hood really lured me in. And everything I've done there was sort of, DC vs. Vampires was the same. That I was just like, oh, it's just me and Otto making vampire comics. Like, yeah, of course I want to do that. And there's a lot of stuff that came across my desk that I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm right for that. I don't think I'm going to be as excited about that as someone else will. Like, go catch them, get their enthusiasm. Um, my creator and stuff is the stuff that I obviously, if it's from me, it's because it's something that is like I'm dying to get out into the world. It's something that I'm really passionate about. The only stuff, the EC stuff was it was funny because I happened to have some pitches for horror things laying around. And I'm a big fan of EC and I think they're cool. And I've known Hunter who runs Oni for years and years. And he just saw me and he was like, would you want to do this? And I was like, I'm pretty busy, man. And he was like, it's EC. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I was just like, oh, I have pitches. If they want one of these pitches, I'll do it. And if they don't, I won't. And I sent them a bunch of pitches and they were really enthusiastic about all of them. And they go to the EC estate, they go to the Gaines estate, and they all were enthusiastic about them. And then I was like, that's great. And I did them and it was awesome. And I got to work with great artists. And um it's just a weird like I had a few days where I could write these, and I wrote them in a few days and got them in, and it was serendipity that I got to cross the thing off my bucket list. But mostly, like, I'm pretty picky about the companies I work for. That's a big thing for me. I love Image Comics. I love DC Comics. Um, I'm a sucker for Archie. I love Archie. I grew up on reading Archie, and I love them. And Black Mask is where I got my start, and so I always have a loyalty to those guys and that company. Beyond that, like there has to be a real reason for me to sit down and talk to you. Like you have to give me something because those companies provide me everything I need and they take really good care of me and I'm pretty loyal to that. So I don't often reach out to other companies and when they offer me meetings or offer me projects, I mostly pass because I'm my needs are met at home, you know.
That is the nice thing about where you're at. We talked about the privilege of being able to say no, but it's not
Yeah,
just that. It's also it's like you were talking about with EC. You didn't really have time. Like you had enough
sure.
to do, but for things like that, you have the choice. You can say no, which would have been a valid choice, or you're like, I can fit this in because I think this would be cool.
Yeah.
And like that's a good position to be in, generally speaking.
Yeah, you know, I will say I don't have a healthy work life divide. I have the least healthy work life divide of anyone I know, I would say.
I feel like I would hear
I
that from a lot of creators, though.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, a lot of people do, and a lot of people learn to guard it, and I have little tricks to sort of guard my mental health from that. But you know, roll out of bed. I check my email while I'm still in bed to make sure nothing's on fire, and then I'm working all day, and then you know my relaxation from comics, if I'm not watching movies or you know going to the park and hanging out with friends, is like um it's reading comics. Like my escape from comics is comics, and that is I love it and it works for me, but it's not healthy. And so when a thing like a EC comes along, and you know Hunter and Sierra, who's the editor on the EC line, give me a deadline, I just have to do the math of like, can I physically do this?
Right.
And the answer, you know, I think I was a little late. Apologies to them, but they run a great ship, and so they rolled with it. But um, the math becomes like, well, I can eat a couple meals at my computer and I can forgo watching a movie tonight and I won't go to the park for 2 days. I won't go outside. I'll skip like, you know, going out to get dinner. I'm just gonna eat Cheerios for lunch. Like whatever it is. And that's the math there because I don't have the time to burn. I get offered cool things and it's just like, no, I physically couldn't do that even if I wanted to. It's not, there's no space. So yeah, I have the luxury to do little things sometimes, but it is a sacrifice of other things that are
Yeah.
healthy and productive for me as a human.
I'm gonna back out my this is a good place to be and say it's mostly a good place to be because gotta take care of yourself, Matt. Gotta take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, I don't do that at all. But no, it is a good place to be in terms of being excited and enthusiastic about the work, which is my main motivator. Is like I love comics. I love making comics, and I feel so. I mean, I tell this story not to whatever, but years ago I was visiting. I was up in my parents' house for Thanksgiving, and at 10:30 we'd put the dishes in the sink and all this stuff, and I think my family was gonna go watch a movie or something, and I said I gotta go work, and my mom said, "Oh, honey, it's 10:30 on Thanksgiving. Like you gotta go work." And I was like, "I'm excited to go work. I love my job. Like I get to go write. I don't know what I was writing at the time, but like I get to go write force works. Who doesn't want to write force works on Thanksgiving?" I chose the one that sounded funniest. I liked writing force works, but it definitely sounds the funny. It's the funniest kicker to that joke. Um, but it's true. I live by that. That it's like, oh, I feel so incredibly lucky and privileged. I am so incredibly lucky and privileged to get paid to do a thing that I absolutely love to do. And I know that everyone says, you know, the joke is do the thing you love and you'll work every day of your life and you won't have any separation between your joys and your livelihood and whatever it is, the play on do a thing you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But I am actually living the sort of um the whatever the cliche of like I do feel like I don't work. I've been very excited. We're taking everyone down with us is launching, and I've been giddy to start emailing retailers, to start signing posters to send to people. Like even that, because that's a nice break from like mentally cracking a story for me. I love doing grunt work. I love being like, oh, this store wants me to do a book plate. Like I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna sort that out. Like I really like that stuff, the logistics of it. So it is a nice place to be, even if it is not the healthiest place to be.
Do you think part of that joy comes from the fact you worked in a comic shop yourself?
I think it comes from a couple places. Part of it is from a comic shop for sure, but I think going back, I used to run a record label,
Yeah.
and that I loved, and I ran a record label with no money, and out of my living room, and super broke, and it was running a record label is a very interesting thing, especially at that level, because you have bands that are going out in vans on tour, playing to rooms full of 30 people. Like when you mess up, not even when you don't mess up, like sometimes they're driving 8 hours to play to 15 people at like small punk and hardcore places. Like they're playing in a kid's basement and being paid in chili. Like, and it does not feel good to be at home being like, I had a nice steak dinner tonight, while the people who make the thing are out there grinding and living a very tough life to try and make it work. And so when we ran our label, the motto was like, we live like we're on tour. Like we're eating peanut butter sandwiches on hamburger rolls that we bought at Costco, and we're eating ramen every meal. And we don't go to the movies. We can't afford to go to the movies because we're putting everything into this label and trying to make sure that these bands know that, like, at least in spirit, we're with them in the van. And so I developed a work ethic from that. And I carry it over that, like, when I make a comic, it's the comic shop that's out there. The comic shop was out there buying the book, and they're on the line and for it. And I have to go out and do everything I can to support them. And working in a comic shop obviously casts a big illuminating light to how true that is. But like, nothing I hate more than going into a shop and seeing a thick stack of books I wrote months ago, like books that came out months ago. I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, you bet on me and it came up short. Like that's a lot of money. That's a video game for your kid that's sitting on that shelf. I hate it. And so I tell every shop always, I say, I'm never going to ask you to order more copies of my book. That's not who I am. I'm going to ask you what I can do to help you sell the copies you order. You figure out what you can do with that. If you think having me come and, give you signed posters and do a giveaway and do an interview for your newsletter, or like make a video for your social media, means you're comfortable selling more books, awesome. If it doesn't change your orders at all, but it helps you sell what you ordered, awesome. I don't care. Just like, I'm going to give you the tools to sell the books. And the support you need is a shop. You're putting the risk out, and I'll do the work to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to mitigate that risk. And I love that. I love that feeling. So that's what I'm in the throes of right now, and it's intense and it's great and super fun.
I think I told you this before, but my shop, Bosco's Comics in Anchorage, Alaska, you and Tyler signed a poster and put some merch together. And they gave it away to all the people. Somebody who had it in their pull list.
Mm-hmm.
I was the winner.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
And there's that signed poster right behind you on your wall.
Framed right there.
It's framed right there in it. And you made it black and white, and it looks like Original
Stuart
art from
Immonen's art.
somebody.
It's crazy. It's weird.
It's crazy. Yeah, we bought a bunch of Stuart Immonen art and sent it to shops as a gift.
Wow. I have to
Didn't
say,
make any sense.
Financially speaking, that seems like a losing proposition based on my experience.
It was horrible. Look, you take some risks. People couldn't figure out how it would pay off, and I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But look, you got some nice art.
What's the furthest place from here? Profitability.
Yeah, not great. No, it is actually. The book did and does very well. We're very lucky. And like, I talk about this stuff with other creators, and they're like, but you could also just like not do this stuff and still do well, and maybe you come out the same. And like, because you're putting so much money into like making posters and mailing things to people and all that stuff. And I said, yeah, maybe I do. I don't know. I like doing the work. It's a nice break from having to figure out how is the Green Lantern gonna stop Darkseid is like, that's mentally taxing. Yeah. Signing posters and putting them in an envelope is like relaxing. It's freeing. It's nice.
And you're being a good member of your community. Yo, everybody, it's David Harper from Sketch and Off Panel, and I just want to take a quick break from this video to remind everyone to subscribe to the Sketch YouTube. There's new podcasts that go up every Monday. There's additional content coming down the way. And if you enjoy what I'm doing, make sure to subscribe because it makes a huge difference for the channel. Thanks for watching. I have a question. I said I was going to bring baseball back in. It's moderately baseball-y. When I had Dennis Camp...
Should Barry Bonds be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, obviously.
Yes.
I think all of the great steroids players should be in. It's a museum. Don't be overcomplicated about this. Alex Rodriguez should be in. Roger Clemens should be in.
Yeah, I don't care if Alex Rodriguez is in, but he should be in.
Yeah,
but I love Barry Bonds so much.
I mean, he was great before the steroids, but and a great left fielder. Case closed. Barry Bonds, you're in. Yeah. Matt and I said so. But when I had Dennis Camp on the podcast, he shared that we both asked him the same question, basically the same question, which is perils of being a podcaster. It was basically like about him being a big swing guy, which makes sense. He is definitely a big swing guy.
He's a big swing guy. Yeah.
What kind of swing guy are you?
I like to bunt. I'm a bunter.
You're a bunter?
When it doesn't make sense. I like, like 2 outs, no one on in the 9th, down by 3. I'm going to bunt.
I like it. Unconventional. Yeah.
No, I am not a big swing guy. You know what I think? I think big swing writing is high concept writing. And Dennis is great. Dennis is a great character writer. Dennis can do a small intimate story as good as anyone. He's great. But I think, and my definition, and other people may differ, I think for the most part, there's big swing character stuff you can do. It's really hard to do big swing character stuff at the big two because they're so protective. They believe that you can break a character. And despite the fact that, me and Donnie Cates used to sit in the Marvel offices and be like, there's nothing we can do to these characters to damage them. Like, you have to understand these existed before we were born. They'll exist after we died. You cannot break them. You've done horrible things to these characters, and people still, and millions of people around the world still love them. Just let us do whatever. But editorial, their job is to safeguard and protect these characters like children. And so it's hard to be a big swing writer in character stuff. It's hard to do that. So big swing on the corporate comics level tends to be high concept stuff. Just really explosive, insane, world-shaking high concept stuff. And Dennis is great at that. Dennis is great. And then you give him something like Ultimates, where it's like, well, now you can take the big character swings because they're not anyone's characters anymore. They're your own characters. They're not his characters, but there's no takes on them, other than the maker. They're pretty much new. He's pretty much inventing most of these characters. So or he's in a room with people who are inventing them and he's borrowing them or whatever. But I am someone who likes to take big character swings. And so that's why, there's always the writers where you're like, well, their big two stuff and their indie stuff feels the same. My big two stuff and my indie stuff doesn't feel the same. And I know that. Sometimes that's by design. Sometimes that's because I'm in my head about it. And there are things that are similar, but I think you can pretty easily tell the difference. Besides the fact that when you read Four Kids Walking to a Bank, you're like, oh, I don't know who the fuck these kids are. Whereas when you're Batman, that's a difference. If Batman being in it isn't a good context clue for you, there's difference in the writing. But I think, I tend to go for the character moments, and I tend to think of myself as a character writer. And, a lot of that is more, to use your baseball, that's squeeze plays, that's hit and runs. That's, for the most part, that's like you're barely getting. You have to make someone fall in love with the character, and then you have to push them someplace that they didn't expect it to go, and doesn't necessarily, but has to work. And that's not big swings. That's tight and intimate and strategic in a very different way.
I disagree.
And
I have a swing comp for you.
Yeah.
Do you know who Mickey Tettleton is?
Yeah.
You're Mickey Tettleton. You
look at that.
have a big swing, but you do it in your own way because his stance is kind of way different than anyone would imagine. You take an unconventional route to getting to your, big result. I mean, like, What's the Furthest Place from Here had records, and it is big issues, and it's all these different things. You're doing big swings. It's just you're not doing the same way that most people do.
See, I think,
not just story-wise, but I mean, I think character-wise, you take big swings too.
Yeah, maybe. What's the Furthest Place from Here is an interesting example of what I'm talking about. Like, What's the Furthest Place from Here is a book. When you launch an Image book, for the most part, you're going to get a bunch of people in Hollywood who are ping you and are like, hey, can I check out your book? And you want to talk? Do you want to option it? That's pretty much, if not par for the course, it's close to par. It's 2 over par, whatever. You usually get those inquiries, people sniffing around, and a lot of them are like, there's a little bit of money there, or whatever. We fully took the book off the table for the first 2 years because we were like, you don't know what you're buying, because What's the Furthest Place from Here, you don't really understand what the story is till 10 issues in, 11 issues in, by design. And that was like, well, if we're going to do an ongoing book, like, let's maximize that. Let's, and that, to me, like, I can see how that feels like a big swing. It's a big creative swing to be like, do you want to be in a world and come along with us while you discover what it is? Like, this is a book for you, not a book for everyone. But I don't think of it as a big swing, because big swings are things that make the whole crowd stand up and cheer. You hit one over the fence and everyone stands. This is, trying to move base runners. This is like, it's a strategy. And a lot of the audience goes to take a bathroom break and go get a hot dog while you've got, you're swapping out runners because you're like, I need another speed on the base because we're going to bunt him over and then we're going to do sack flies. And that's to me what it is. It's strategic storytelling, but it's experimental, and we're trying things that are like not for everybody. And we know that. So I can see how it feels like a big swing to other people. To me, it's not, but I guess that's sort of semantics.
Well, let's talk about your next hit and run play, which is We're Taking Everything Down with Us, your upcoming Image comic series that you're putting together with your Punisher pal, Stefano Landini, colorist Roman Titov and Jason Wardy, and letterer Hassan Otsman El How. I will do the solicit real quick. After her mad scientist father is killed by the world's greatest spy, 13-year-old Annalise is left all alone in the world, sort of. Her dead dad's robot bodyguard is following her around for some reason. Now Annalise has a choice. Try to lead a normal life for the first time ever, or seek revenge and maybe overthrow the world order in the process. I had an unfortunate skip there in world order in the process. I have read the first issue, or at least most of it, apparently.
Most of it.
The parts I've read are fantastic. I think it's really great. Can I tell you a quick aside? It's a complete failing on me as a reader. I had not read anything about it in advance. I had not read the solicit. I had not read interviews yet. And I read it and I was like, I believe this guy. He is not the bad guy. He is telling his daughter the truth. Nope. Apparently I was wrong. I do think it's funny, though, that I am apparently an awful reader. And I was just like, this guy has got to have his reasons for this. From what I understand, this started with Stefano coming to you, where he was like, I want to do a creator-owned book with you, and here's a robot I've drawn. You said you are a character-first thinker. How did that become this?
So there'll be some light spoiler stuff in here. But basically, Stefano had a robot drawing that is our robot, sort of. He evolved it in cool ways. But
to be fair, there's like 4 robots at least.
Oh, there's a lot, but I mean,
the main robot.
The main robot, it's sort of. I mean, all the different robots are identical. They're just color coded. This was not quite identical, Stefano's original robot. And he sent me this design. He's funny. I love Stefano, and he's amazing to work with, and I'm so happy because I really think people are going to discover how brilliant he is in this book. But for those who don't already know, obviously he has a lot of fans already. But the he sent this. He said, "I have an idea for a story," and then he sent me a drawing of a robot, and I was like, "It's not a story, dude. It's a drawing of a robot." And he was like,
"Apparently, it was."
Well, he said like, "I just want to do like an espionage spy thriller thing with this robot," and I was like, "Okay." And I then kind of had a like little minor freak out where I was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, this isn't, how do I honor this? And I built up this whole world of this girl and her mad scientist dad and a James Bond type villain who's hunting them and her robot bodyguard and what her robot bodyguard and her relationship to it and how that's going to change. And, you know, there's some I don't want to get into too many spoilers for the series, but like her relationship to the robot and the robot's relationship to her dad is something that evolves and changes through the story. And I built all this world, and I realized while writing issue 4 that I was like, oh man, I overthought some of this. Like, and I think it comes out good in the end, but I didn't trust Stefano that just like this robot doing badass things would be a great comic.
Mm-hmm.
This robot, like, just being like, it's robot James Bond or it's robot Ethan Hunt or like it's robot Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, like, would be awesome. And I was like, I need to build this, like, I need to tell a story about family and about regret and about, you know, the choice in the moment in your life where you no longer are accountable to someone else, the moment of you know, what I consider like crossing an adult threshold where like no one protects you from your own decisions. I was like, I want to do all that. And the book in the end is a pull of both of us, of me doing all this character stuff and Stefano being like, it's a fucking cool robot, man. Just let it do cool shit. And he's right and I'm right. And I think the book is better for it because it's a synthesis of two people pulling in different directions. And that's the best collaboration you can get in comics. I think there's obviously something great about everyone being on the same page, and you see that in a ton of people's works. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but when you read a Brubaker Phillips comic, it feels like those guys are in lockstep creatively. Like they just know what they're doing. This is the opposite, which I think is just as exciting. That it's two people's ideas like being forced together, and you get something that surprises them both, and hopefully surprises the audience. And I really love that. So that is what we're doing here. Is Stefano is making the coolest badass robot spy comic, and I am making the most heartbreaking, sad, tragic little girl forced into a life that she didn't choose for herself comic.
I keep disagreeing with you, but I feel like Ed and Sean actually work the same way, because a lot of times Sean is like, I want to draw a romance comic, and Ed's like, oh shit, how am I going to do this? All right, I guess I'm doing My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. And like, yeah. And then it becomes that, or like Sean's like, I want to draw old timey Hollywood. And like, all right, I guess murder mystery with a writer, fade out. All right, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. That is the thing. I think that there's the thing I found is that when people are too, and I love their books, obviously, and so I'm going to say a thing that's maybe seems like
retroactively guarded. I can't believe you're saying things like that. I mean, no one says that. Jeez.
Yeah, those guys are terrible, and that needs to be known. No, I mean they're the best. You know, the modern best creative team in comics, but I think that there is something special about ideas that have to survive in a duel.
Yeah.
There's something great about the battleground of ideas, about the joust that is two creators who aren't 100% in lockstep. And like, you know, the reason Ed and Sean are the best at what they do is because it feels at the end like they were, and they weren't. Maybe that's what I'm discovering. But yeah, I think I have a lot of ideas in this book that don't make it onto the page because they don't stand up to Stefano's world of badass spies and robots and mad scientists. And he has a lot of, you know, the same thing that it's like, well, that doesn't quite live in our world. And, you know, like he really wanted to draw a sports car. And he's like, I want them to be in sports cars. And I was like, I'll get you your sports car, but it's not going to be for a while. And so issue 4 is where he gets his sports car, and it's great. The sports when the sports car finally comes in, it's not that they're like it's a robot who has a sports car. Like the sports car is earned in a story way where I was like, I gotta really make it matter because it's like otherwise it's really weird. And so the sports car moment is going to be really good in issue 4. It's like one of my favorite things in the book. But that's what I mean of like, you know, your ideas are extra tested when you're not 100% on the same page. Your sounding board being a yes man or a yes woman is not good for you creatively, and that's not what me and Stefano are. We love what we're doing and we love the end product because it's a tug of war.
Yeah, I mean, it strengthens and changes and morphs and does all these things. I have to say this actually makes sense because when I was reading an interview you did with I think it was Monkeys Fighting Robots, some of the listed influences were James Bond movies,
Sure.
John le Carre,
Yeah.
Midnight Run, The Royal Tenenbaums, and Heathers. And I was like, how the hell is that? And then I realized what that is basically a melding of the two sides. That's what that is basically.
Yeah. It's, you know, when you make a book like this, I'm like, it's hard because, you know, retailers especially, they don't have time to read 100 new issues every week to be like, this is what this book is. And so a lot of retailers want you to be able to be like, it's this meets this.
Yeah.
And the closest comps for what this is are unsellable, where I'm like, it's Paper Moon meets Diabolique with a robot. And people are just like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, come, that's negative sales. Like, people will put it down if I say that to them when they pick it up off the shelf. But like, and so, but I don't think that's fair to what the work is. And I don't say that in a pretentious way. We just throw so many familiar things, but it's not that thing. So like, there's a Heathers element to the book. There's that sort of like dark teen coming of age story thing to it. There's a Terminator element to the book, but it's not Heathers meets Terminator. Like that is, if I told someone that and they bought it, they'd be like, it is not those things. But it is like, we don't do a like A meets B. We do a like, we made a stew and there's 20 ingredients. And like no single ingredient is really going to give you clarity on what the book is. But when you read it, you will have a familiarity and a sense of what the pieces are and where we're drawing influences from. And I like that. I like, you know, I say this sometimes. I love the writers who won't talk about their influences and just say, you know, their ideas are handed down to them from, you know, from on high, or they're figured out through dark wizardry. Like that's great. That, you know, there's a great doom metal, sludge metal, hardcore band called Neurosis, who were a band for decades, who were super influential, and they always claimed that they didn't listen to music because they didn't want to have influences. That they, as a band, refused to listen to music. And I
don't personally believe that.
I don't think it's possible. Like, what, they run out of the grocery store,
they start screaming if they're in the elevator.
Yeah, but I loved the story of it. I was just like, I just like to think of them sitting in their van driving across country in silence, being like, we will not be influenced. And it's awesome and it's great. And it's such a cool narrative. I'm not cool enough to pull that off. So I wear my heart on my sleeves when people are like, oh, there's a little bit of Johnny Quest in there. Like, it's funny, someone said Johnny Quest to me yesterday, and I was like, I didn't think of that, but I guess there is some Johnny Quest in there. But like, yeah, there's a lot of different things that I'm like, I'm pretty transparent about it. I like the stuff I love, and it feeds me and it nourishes me, and it comes back out in the work, digested and synthesized. And, you know, I guess that means poop, but I don't like to think of it that way. But yeah, all that stuff ends up in there, and it's fun to me. I love when people are like, oh, is that, you know, are you a fan of, not is that I'm not referencing stuff, but when people find an influence in the work and say, are you a fan of this thing? I don't think I ever just completely lift anything. Like, I don't steal jokes or plot points, but like when someone can say to me like, oh, are you a fan of Whit Stillman? Because this feels like Barcelona. This feels like Metropolitan to me in some ways. I love that. I'm like, yes, I'm a huge fan of Whit Stillman. I love that. Are you a big Mamet fan? It's like, yeah, of course. Like
Maybe not the most recent
that's a great
stuff,
feeling.
but yeah.
Yeah, look, everyone has their eras. Good for him.
Leon the Professional, if John Reno was a robot and Gary Oldman's character was also his Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy character.
Oh, 100%. Like Leon is a huge influence. Like Leon is the comp that we do a lot. And I say Leon, and then they're like, oh, and then people read it and they're like, oh, but not. And I'm like, yeah. Exactly.
No, it's any comp is terrible because the book is what the book is. I mean, I will say the thing that I really like about it is, I mean, I like a lot of things about it. Stefano's art is amazing.
Yes.
It is just, it's fun in a way that your books are fun, which I can't really explain, but I hope maybe you understand. I don't know. You have a wit to you that like just makes these books like, I don't know, such a fun. If I don't want to keep saying fun, an easy read, that seems insulting. You know what I'm saying?
I like an easy read. I like that. I like it. There's a casualness to it. The fun thing is the unquantifiable wit in my books of like the very confusing sort of humor was illuminated to me not long ago by my good friend Kelly Thompson. We were talking about our time writing X-Men together, Uncanny X-Men, and we realized that there were certain scenes we didn't know which one of us wrote, because we wrote it with Ed Brisson and we always knew what Ed wrote.
Yeah,
Ed didn't feel like us, but me and Kelly couldn't tell what was me and what was her. Like most of it we knew because we remembered, but there were certain scenes where I'd be like, did I write this or did you write this? And she'd be like, I don't know. And afterwards she said to me, she said, the way I can tell whether you wrote something or I wrote something is, she's like, we write the same. And she said, and if there's an underlying hope and optimism to it, I wrote it. And if there's a creeping darkness and sense of despair, you wrote it. And she said, but also if the jokes end up being very cutesy, I wrote them. And if they end up being kind of nonsense and confusing, you wrote them. She's like, and that doesn't mean that. And I was like, so my jokes are nonsense? And she's like, but no, it just means that. She's like, you read a lot of things that I laugh at and I can't figure out why I'm laughing. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. And I was doing a lettering draft on a script yesterday where I was like, I really like this dialogue. I don't even know why I like it. I don't know why I think this is funny, but I think it's funny. And most people will read it and be like, I don't get it. But I'm like, some people will think it's funny.
Here's a weird random standout from the first issue. Very minor spoiler. The mad scientist says, yes, I'll play hide or seek with you. And it's like hide and seek is like, well, I don't know if we have time for both. I was like, that's good. That's good. But
yeah, that's a good joke. That's a good joke.
The real thing, the thing that stood out to me the most is like, I like stories that show you a different angle to something you think that you're familiar with. Like there was a Star Wars story called Tag and Bink are Dead. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I am, of course.
Yeah. So it's like you see the original trilogy from the position of basically two guys who just happen to be always there. This is like a spy story if instead of telling it from the perspective of Bond or Blofeld, you were interested in the latter's daughter, in Annalise. And that really changes things. What was fun about that angle for you, and like what made that the right way in?
So I think some of it is my love of spy stories, and it's the evolution of my love of spy stories, that I grew up loving Bond, and I still do. I love Bond. And I grew up loving the absurd Bond. I love 60s, 70s Bond. I love Connery. I love Moore Bond. Like, those are ridiculous movies. Morally questionable, like really insane premises, really insane set pieces. And I love that. And then as you get older, you sort of realize that maybe celebrating spies and assassins and is not, secret government activity to stop people, even in a Bond world where the people definitely need to be stopped, is maybe not the kind of fiction that you feel connecting to as much. That you don't love a man who works outside government laws to kill people and is sanctioned to do that. It makes you a little queasy ethically. And then you discover things like Graham Greene and John le Carré, where they're doing, you're getting The Quiet American and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, where they're dismantling the Bond tropes, but they're doing it in this very grounded, brilliant way of just like, the spy is not sexy and glamorous. The spy is morally fluid and drowning in paperwork and like, very smart at being really manipulative and horrible to people. And like, that's fascinating to me. And, I think about reading Greg Rucka's Queen and Country. And that to me was like a revelation also of just being like, oh, this is so different than what I'm used to. And so when Stefano said I want to do a spy thing, my first thought is, well, a Queen and Country, a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And then I'm like, but I have a robot. So I'm already in the James Bond camp. Like, what, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I'm already doing ridiculousness. Like, I might as well lean into it. And so I'm trying to come at the James Bond mythos from a place of love, 100%. Like, I own every James Bond movie. I go see them when they come out. I'm a James Bond super fan. So I'm not saying I'm trying to dismantle it because I think it's awful. I love it. I'm trying to dismantle it because that's where my brain is at. But I can't come from the angle of smart, grounded, um, you know, dissection of this thing on moral grounds. I have to come the other direction. I have to be like, look how absurd this is.
Yeah.
Look how crazy what we're doing is here. And the easiest way to do that is through the angle of collateral damage. That Annalise, our protagonist, isn't, when you meet her, she's a little kid who does not know anything about this. She doesn't know that her dad is a mad scientist. She doesn't know that he tried to take over the world. She doesn't know that, he is a member of a league of truly horrible people who are constantly at war with a secret government organization sent to stop them. And what happens is that things go bad in her world. People are put in danger. People are hurt. And suddenly she is in this war. And I think, it feels goofy because the inn is goofy. We're trying to do, the robot James Bond story, like to sort of take down the idea. But what we end up doing is a study of like the way violence and the way state-sanctioned violence spirals out in all directions and begets more violence, and the way that the stories we see on the screen of a war and of conflict are just the very tip of the iceberg of how these things impact people and trickle down, and what that does to them, and what it's like to be a person who doesn't end up in the body count statistics of something, but is very much like their life is very much changed and ruined by that thing that they don't make the headline on. And so that's the angle. And that's sort of going back to the Stefano idea of like the tug of war, is that like we're doing a goofy over the top James Bond thing where there's a bulletproof robot who punches a guy's head off, but also we're doing a story about a little girl whose family is killed by state sanctioned violence. Like, that's horrible. And it's both of those things. So it's funny and it's comedic and it's tragic, and I don't know.
And she has a complicated relationship with her dad.
She has a super complicated relationship with her dad because her dad is a soldier in a war that she didn't even know existed, and he is and she has a complicated relationship with this robot because she does not understand why she has a robot for a best friend, and that's going to change, and their relationship is going to change. All of it is it's that I'm really I said this before, but I tell a story to sort of get to work through things in my head, and a thing I really think about a lot, and without getting too much into therapy on the podcast, a thing I think about a lot is like that threshold to adulthood and crossing that threshold. And for some people it's a nonsense thing, and it's, I graduated from college and now I live alone, or like I got my first job. But for a lot of people it's not. For a lot of people there's a quantifiable moment where like you suddenly had to do things that were done for you before. You suddenly had to make choices that are your choices and no one else's. And that is such a fascinating thing. And it's a thing that I've played with in a lot of books. And it's a thing we played with in Four Kids Walk No Bank. It's a thing we played with in We Can Never Go Home. And it's a thing I play with here because I keep tripping up on it and reevaluating my beliefs in it and my stance on it. So like this book is sort of in conversation with all my other works because it's always me going back and trying to get right what I think I got wrong, or change, not that I got it wrong, but just that I was a different person then, and I believed different things. And so, yeah, there's a morality that I'm working through, and there's an emotional story that I'm working through that is very real and very weighs heavily on me in this book.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
and Bond works well with that. And you know, obviously the stuff that's going on in the world, it weighs heavily on me.
yeah. I mean, it all adds up to a book that totally makes sense and just really works in the best of ways that your books work. I really
Thank
love
you.
the first issue. Again, and even though I have no idea if maybe the last 4 pages or however many pages it is just completely tanks it. I have no idea.
It's not the last
Giving me here. What are you
yeah,
giving
yeah,
me? This is
yeah,
ridiculous. Okay.
yeah.
I have to ask a question about another thing that you're known for. We're taking everything down with us. Famously long. Something you do. I had a patron question from Linus Lee who asked, do you think that We Can Never Go Home introduced or popularized a new naming style in comics?
No. It's, you know, it is funny. I don't think there were definitely some.
I think manga plays
Long
a part. Manga has long titles.
Manga plays a part. I think the rise of more Indian foreign films, a lot of, you know, novels. Like no, We Can Never Go Home. It is funny because I was told recently that a person I used to work for, who will remain nameless, referred to doing that as a James Tynion title. They were like, do a long one, like a James Tynion title. And I was so fucking mad. And I was like,
you steal it from me?
And I was like, well, when We Can Never Go Home came out, James was making The Woods. And when Four Kids Walk Into a Bank came out, James was making Memetic. It's only Something Is Killing the Children where James starts to play with it. And now he's great and he's a master. And you know, I bow to James's skill. And obviously, look, Al Ewing doesn't do a lot of creator-owned books, but We Only Find Them When They're Dead is an all-time great title. That is a unstoppably good title. I sent Al, when he announced the book, I don't think I've cursed at someone so much in an email in my life for just being like, you horrible, wonderful man, how fucking dare you come up with such a good title. So I do feel some ownership to it, but it's not deserved. We Can Never Go Home, Four Kids Walk Into a Bank. I mean, if people knew, I just had logos designed for all the books, and if people saw them, my designer was like, this is just a novel. You just asked me to find logos for a whole novel. And I was like, yeah, you're doing logos for a lot of sentences. I love them. The derivation of it, besides, you know, it's a few things. You know, a lot of my favorite movies, a lot of my favorite books have these long titles. I always think about like the Kinji Fukasaku films. Like if you go back and look at his movies that aren't Battle Royale, it is a murderer's row of just titles that make you want to go see a movie, run out and see a movie. But you know, there's a lot of people who make great movie titles, and that stuff always grabs me. But also part of it is I worked in a comic shop, and legitimately not a joke. There was this time when someone came in and was like, I want Warren Ellis's The Woods. And I had to be like, Warren Ellis makes trees, James Tynion makes The Woods. And they were like, nope, I want Warren Ellis's The Woods. And I was like, that's not a thing.
Possible.
And you know, it's a little bit like, I can staple these two books together for you if you want, but that's the only way you're getting that. And I already knew that I was doing long title stuff. I was already working on Four Kids Walking to a Bank, which had a different title back then, but was longer. And We Can Never Go Home was already coming out, I believe, or was about to come. I don't know if it was coming out or was about to come out. But it solidified to me that, like, you know, the verbal search engine optimization of long titles, where you go into a store and you go, where's the farthest? And they go, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But if your book is called Punch, you go, do you have hit? And they go, yeah, we have hit. And then you look at it and go, that's not what I meant.
I meant the other hit.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, you mean bang? And they're like, no. I mean, look, Image has published 5 books that I love that are 2-word titles that the first word is black. It's crazy.
Or there's also a second word with Radiant Black, who Kyle Higgins was my last guest. So lots of black involved.
Man, I'm chasing Kyle from podcast to podcast. Um,
I bet.
Yeah, Radiant Black, but like I love Black Cloak, I love Black Magic, I love Black Science, I love Black Monday Murders. And I'm like, you know, God bless all of you amazing creators that you don't need to have a name that super stands out because your books are so good that people will just find them and gravitate towards them. I need every help I can get. So my book is gonna be called, the black light that shines inside you, or whatever it is, so people can go in and they don't have to remember just the two words. Like, I need any leg up. That's
Uh,
not the title of the book. I would never call the book that.
I do like the fact that you have these super long titles and your podcast has a 3-word title. I mean, you barely put any effort in on that. That's just it's
The
terrible.
podcast, one of the names we almost went with with the podcast was just comics. We were just going to call it comics,
Oh my
lowercase,
God.
all lowercase with a period. And that got really close to going, and then we didn't do it.
I don't know if that would make you more discoverable or less discoverable.
I think it wouldn't. I think no one would ever hear the podcast. I think it just would completely. I don't think Spotify would or Apple Podcasts would ever help me.
I do like the idea that it would have been called comics. I feel like it worked out in the end. But all right, 2 more questions for you. Your last creator-owned launch was What's the Furthest Place from Here back in late 2021. Slightly different time. How different does the world and comic market feel for you right now?
What's funny is that What's the Furthest Place from Here, we were going to launch in 2020, and we paused because Diamond shut everything down. Marvel told everyone to put their pencils down, and we were like, we don't even know if there's going to be comic shops when we come back. Like, we don't know that there's going to be an industry. Like, we're not going to pay to print a book that doesn't go out the door at Diamond.
And then came back to a crazy market.
And we came back to a crazy market. And I think it took a long time to realize, like, we sold 100,000 copies of the first issue. What's the First Place from Here? And it was a time when paper shortages were still in stock. So that sold out, and there was demand for a reprint, and we couldn't do it because if you reprinted everything, then other books couldn't get paper and couldn't print. And so, like, you were just given one printing at Image. And so we launched with Newburn or Public Domain. We launched with one of Chip's other books.
I think that would have been Newburn.
Yeah, us and Newburn launched at the same time, I think. And both sold out and needed reprints, and they were like, you can't do it. And like, I think, Chip was like, can we run both books together and print them as one comic? Would that save anything? With that? And they were, because time on the printer was hard to get, and they were like, we literally can't get you on the printer. Like, everything's scheduled so far out, paper is allotted so far out, like, we can't do it. But we sold 100,000 copies, and I certainly didn't think like, oh, I'm worth 100,000 copies now. But I don't think we realized what a weirdly perfect storm of comic sales that was, of people are not going out, they're not doing things, so they're actually reading more, they're actually looking for entertainment, they're feeling cooped up, so they're spending money because that's an endorphin rush, and they're also getting checks from the government. Some people are getting checks to stay home because they're not working, and so comics were just flying, and that was awesome in that regard. Everything else about it was horrible, but that part was cool. And now we're in a period of contraction again, which, that's how bubbles work. Expand and contract. I'm not super excited to be in a period of contraction, but I also, look, I love a speculator, buy the book and have fun playing stocks with it. That's cool. Go do that. I love a variant cover collector. Like, you like a different part of it. I said to a shop once, they were like, doesn't it bother you that there are people who are buying your book because just for the cover and they don't even open it? And I was like, if I was a chef in a restaurant, I would hope they were there because the food tastes good. But if they tell me they're there because the seats are soft, or that the ambiance is nice, or they like, a lot of attractive people come and eat there, like, what am I going to be like, no, get out of my restaurant? Like, no, you show up for the reason you show up, and I'm just happy to have you, and I'm going to serve you the best meal I can. And if you enjoy it, that's fine. If you put it in a doggy bag and take it home and feed it to your dog, that's fine too. Do whatever you want. I don't care. But I will say that leaner times in the comic market tend to mean shops are buying exactly what they know they can sell. They're not trying to sit on things. They're not trying to invest in things. So it's really important to pre-order, everybody. Hit that pre-order. Call your shop right now and tell them We're taking everyone down with us. Number one, lunar code is, I don't know what the lunar code is. I wish I could do that. The shops are leaner and people's buying habits are leaner. People tend to be buying stuff that they actually are going to read and they want to read. And in some ways, that is, I take every dollar spent on a comic I write very seriously. I understand what a dollar's worth in the world. I've worked horrible jobs. I've worked minimum wage jobs in my life. I get it. If you're spending $4, that's time. You worked 20 minutes, half an hour at your job to buy this. I want you to fucking love it. But I also know that the leaner times mean that most of your comic sales are going to be going to people who care about the book and are in a reading capacity. They want to read it and they want to consume it. And that is, while everything is fine, whatever you want to do with the book is fine. That's my favorite thing because we make it to be read. And so there's I have a little optimism about that always when, if we come out and sell 4,000 copies of this book, I can sort of be like, yeah, I think 4,000 people are close actually tried to read it. And that's cool. That's awesome. That's so flattering that 4,000 people would do that. I hope we sell more than 4,000 copies, but I'm grateful for every reader. So leaner times, I just want to make sure that shops aren't endangered by their orders, and I want to make sure the customers get their money worth, and everything else is semantic. It's, at the end of the day, everything else is for my accountant and my bank account to figure out.
I mean, in a weird way, not to go further into the accountant and bank account sort of direction, but in a weird way, let's say you sell 20,000 copies and 18,000 of them are readers. What's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if I sell 20,000 copies, I'm going to retire.
Okay. But let's say 18,000 of them are readers. There might, part of the benefit of that is stability. Like the attrition rate might be less bad, but yeah, it is an interesting time. That's one thing I've heard is some people were kind of shocked when they were launching during the pandemic time. And I mean, you talked with Tony and Tim about this, where it's Tony Fleece launches Stray Dogs and it's a phenomenon. Sure. And then they do Local Man and they make it to 25, but they have to kind of kill themselves. Well, 25 by way.
Yeah, I mean, 13.
But anyway,
they make it to 1 million. That was very hard.
But they do that, but it's more of a grind and it's less of a this is a you know what I'm saying? It's a different route to getting there, and well, it certainly is a different route to getting there, but it's kind of shocking just how different it really is. And that doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. I mean, like you said, it's in a market of expansion and contraction, just back and forth. It's cyclical. But that does, last question for you. There's all this stuff going on. The world is a hot mess. Diamond just filed for bankruptcy. Social media is stupid and you can't talk to anybody anymore. Can't promote your stuff. That's for damn sure. We talked earlier about how 2025 is a big year for you in creator-owned. Do you feel like the environment we're in is changing what you might want for yourself and possibly pushing you in that direction? Or is that really just what you wanted anyways, and it's just how it worked out?
No, the environment is definitely changing what I want for myself. Now I want a, bomb shelter, but that's the doom and gloom talking. But I think... I think that the environment changes the work for sure. I tend to be cynical. I'm a cynical person. I'm a cynical person who sort of has a bubbly vibe. Not bubbly. I'm not bubbly, but people find me very calm. Calm and cynical is a weird combination because I'm kind of assume the worst and I'm kind of okay with it. And that comes out in my work a lot. And I'm sort of trying to course correct some of that because I don't think having the most, I mean, first of all, we can't outpace the world right now for cynical takes. You'd have to be a real wizard to figure out how to do a story that's more cynical than what's actually happening in the world right now. But beyond that, I mean, I have the luxury of Substack having my back. And so I don't need these books. I mean, I don't need to sell a single copy of the book. The book is paid for. So I just won't make any money if it doesn't sell any copies.
We have quite the range of possible sales right now. It's 0, 4,000 or 20,000. It's going to be hard to predict.
Yeah. Please let it be more than 0. Maybe I would retire. If it's 0, I might actually be like, that's my last comic, guys. I'm going to go. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I'm going to go work on a boat. But I think you're crazy if you're not looking at the world right now and making all sorts of different adjustments to your life. I mean, there's a very real possibility that like a lot of people are entering worst case scenarios for their life. And so I'm very privileged that I'm not, but I have a lot of friends are. I mean, I've given more money to GoFundMe's in the past month than I've given thousands of dollars to GoFundMe's in the past month to just help people and friends and businesses I care about. There's no social safety net. Everyone's on their own until we figure out that that's not the best system. And so making comics in that is very complicated because you want to provide people with escapism, but also like who wants to be making vapid stuff in a crisis? Like you want to have something to say. And so it's trying to balance those things in both the work and in my life. Like I want some escapism in my life, and I also want to be helping people and doing things like and all of that matters. And comic shops are about to have a real tough year. Like there's no way around that. Comics may be going up in price dramatically very soon. People's disposable income, if they don't have health insurance, if they have to take care of loved ones who don't have health insurance, if they don't have rent assistance, if they don't have any of these things, like their disposable income is going to be cut. Like it's rough. It's really rough to be doing this stuff right now. And I'm trying to balance bring some joy to people's lives, but also having something to say. And that's just more to the forefront right now than it ever has been with me.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck in finding that balance, and I wish everyone the best of luck in finding that balance, because it's, like you said, going to be a challenging year. But Matt, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about, oh my God, I cannot believe it. Right off the top of my head, I've completely forgotten the name of the book.
The book is called Absolute Batman, and it's in stores now. My book is called We're Taking Everyone Down With Us. Issue 1 is in stores March 26th at your local comic shop. It helps us, and it helps your shop, and it helps other customers, and it helps you if you pre-order it and pre-order all your books and pick up your goddamn pull lists. Don't ask them to buy books for you and not get them. That makes you a monster person.
Normally, I would demand to redo it myself where I don't look like an idiot. But you did such a good job with my own outro. That's all I have for you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Everybody read Matt's stuff. He's great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.